Now we start slat. These are 4 people that I think we should all know about, and I know for sure have had a great influence in my thinking. If you play that like one more time. The S is for Socrates. You guys have probably never seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You don't even know what strange things are afoot at the Circle K. I wrote a piece for you on the way here today. It's called Everything Happens Now. 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 Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Socrates was a Greek philosopher. One of the things that I always thought he said, and now, through the miracle of the interwebs, I'm being told I'm wrong. I always thought he was the one who said, teaching is about fanning a flame, not filling vessels. You understand that? What's filling vessels?
Giving knowledge. Just stuffing stuff with information.
Stuffing stuff with information. Stuffing stuff with stuff. Like George Carlin. Where are you going to put all your stuff? Right. Yeah, you can take that for how you perceive it. But there's a lot of stuffing people full of stuff going on sometimes in the name of teaching. He says, and empirically speaking, through all of my experience that brought me to this now, I agree. There's lots of things, I guess, that I learned from my teachers. Well, for sure there is. How to hold the thing. That's going to get spit on my iPad, sorry. Maybe some really good ways to put your lips, things to think about with your tongue. Sure, totally. But it's not even close to the stuff that you learn on your own when you just try stuff because you're interested and curious and inspired by sound. And a lot of those things that you discover for yourself, you'll never be able to explain to anybody else. You know? I remember Dennis Smith, you know, he didn't really tell me much. He would play. And I would listen. And I don't, you know, I think maybe it's because the things he was trying to show me and teach me, he couldn't really put into words, right? Now, the flip side of the coin, and this is why I feel, you know, super blessed. The flip side of the coin of that is Buddy and Milt, who I did my doctorate with. They could analyze and technically present for you and your left brain exactly what was going on. And very concisely, and very adeptly, and very expertly tell you what's up. There's left brain, right brain stuff, right? That's going to be important later. But that's one thing Socrates said, is teaching is about fanning flames and not filling vessels. I like that. I'm taking it, and I'm giving him credit. I don't care what my geek friends tell me. Well, technically, actually, that appeared in the writings. I don't care. Socrates. He also said that metaphor can name the unnamed. Unnameable. That could potentially be spelled incorrectly. What's metaphor? Pretty much, right? A lot of times I'll ask that, especially if I go to high schools where there's stuff like fresh, you know. Metaphor is the comparison of two dissimilar objects, not using the words like or as. True. That's true. But what does that mean? Metaphor is literally to carry beyond literal meaning. Those are the roots of that word, right? So Socrates, Plato, the great philosophers, they used metaphor in their teaching a lot. Another word for metaphor, if you so desire, is parable, story, myth. That you can substitute that to mean metaphor, right? So not only can metaphor name the unnameable, but metaphor has a name for everything. Think about that. Everything happens now. Everything. Why is that important? Well, it's important because of L in SLAT. That stands for Leonard Bernstein. Do you all know who he was? Yeah, somebody enlighten us. Take your time.
I forgot where he was conductor of.
Conductor?
Yes.
Yep.
Definitely.
Conductor of the New York Philharmonic for a while.
Yes.
And so many other groups. What else?
Writer.
Composer.
Arranger.
What did he write?
West Side Story.
He is attributed to the music of West Side Story.
West Side Story.
Candy.
A collaboration with a very young Stephen Sondheim.
Candy.
Candide. A tribute to the revolutionary thoughts of Voltaire. And a mass. A really good mass. A great mass. Which is interesting, coming from a Jew. Right? He transcended your normal human being. He was a virtuoso in every way. But one of the greatest things about him is he was so charismatic. He could talk to you and me. You know, even though his head was like years and eons beyond us, he could have a conversation with you, and he could explain stuff to you. And we have these resources. There's a whole series of lectures that he did at Harvard University, the Norton series of lectures, that are all in high-def, beautiful video quality at YouTube. It's like 6 hours of Lenny telling you, you know, what it's all about. And when he did these lectures, very interestingly, that's his alma mater, by the way. He really wanted it to be communicable to the layperson. So he first did a test run of these lectures with teachers, firemen, I don't know, landscape artists, people who normally you wouldn't expect to see in a lecture hall at Harvard University. People off the street, because he wanted their feedback, and he wanted to make sure that what he was saying was understandable, right? Was very important to him. And they're brilliant. After he did that, with that audience, he got together with a team and got feedback from them, and he whittled it down. And then he had the lectures that you see up on YouTube, which are with students of Harvard and also, you know, big thinkers. Not many lay people, I don't think, in that room in those lectures. After he did that, he got together with a team and he whittled it down and got feedback, and then he wrote a book called The Unanswered Question. And so you have this in two forms. You've got the lectures themselves, which have been transcribed and put in book form, and the videos. The videos are even better because seeing him do this is, you know, marvelous. But then you've got the book written after the fact where he tries to even further clarify. So thank you, Lenny. But one of the things that Lenny explains in one of these lectures is like the motor behind music. How does it work, he says. So he's sitting at the piano and he's playing like this Beethoven sonata, I think. And he's basically like doing a running dialogue. He goes, oh, but I plead with you. Pretty please. But then again. And he's doing this dialogue while playing Beethoven, and the music is like, it's starting to make sense in a way that it hadn't made sense before, right? And he explains that because he's adding a sense of rhetoric to the sound. Oh. And how it works is that those vibrations go into your head, and they're not just vibrations anymore. They have some kind of meaning other than what they really truly are. Metaphor. Your brain makes metaphors out of sound. It's like magic. So, this math lecture I'm going to give you today, it starts here. Equations. What's this?
Theory that relates energy to mass and speed of light.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
Yeah.
Are you all hip to that? E is energy. Equals means the same as. M is mass, which is really difficult to define. And C is the speed of light, which is impossible to define. And then you square it. So, you want to talk about metaphor. This is an unbelievable metaphor, right? We look at it and go, whatever, right? But a lot of people looked at it and said, oh, wait a minute. That's why gravity affects time. Huh. That's why space curves. That's why if space curves all the way around, maybe time is a dimension that we've had all wrong in our minds. And maybe time is much, much deeper than it is long. In that, right? Now, if you could see all the stuff that went into that, if you could see the warehouses of notes and formulas that he was working on and kicking around while he had that awful job as a patent clerk, right? Which has got to be like the most mundane job in the world, right? But it takes a particular kind of mind. And he had a really great mind for it, but he hated it. But he's thinking about this stuff like nonstop. Everybody wanted that one unified theory. What explains it all? That's what he was going for, right? So he's got all this stuff kicking around in his head, and guess when this revealed itself? When he was playing music. He writes all about it. Albert Einstein, he's the A. He was an exceptional violinist, apparently. Really good. Like there's pictures of him playing with like all the cats of the day. He writes very clearly about when that moment of inspiration came, and it was a musical inspiration that brought this to clarity for him. What happens when you're in that kind of mindset? What's going on inside your mind when you are in your deepest moments of musical inspiration? Well, one thing that's not happening is your intellect is not going at all. Your intellect is off. So his intellect was off when one of the greatest scientific revelations in the 20th century occurred to him. Think about that. How does that work? Well, it works metaphorically. Because when you're in your deepest moments of musical inspiration and your intellect is off, you are in a world of pure metaphor. And you can't put anything into words in that world. And the moment you try, you've lost the metaphor. You're naming the unnameable. And you're naming everything. And Lenny explains this. And then he says, well, okay, so if it can name the unnameable and it has a name for everything, can you play bribery? Whoa. Man, I don't know. Can you play bright? Yeah. How do we mean play bright? Bright is a visual term. It cannot apply to music. Oh, it must be a metaphor. It must mean something other than it says. Can you play dark? What are you talking about? There is no darkness or lightness in sound. Or is there? All right? It's all metaphor. Can you play red? Have you ever seen Miles' album, Aura? Every track is named a color. If you put that album on and listen to it, it's kind of freaky. Don't look at the track names and write down what you think the track names are and then see how well he did. He did pretty well. and how in the world does that happen? You know, how do you play yellow, man? I don't know, but it happens. In the same way that longing happens, and horrible despair, and utter glee, and royal badassness, and all those other things that music does for us. Well, yeah, it can do apparently anything. Okay, so colors, I can kind of get around that. We talk about tone color after all, right? That's a term we hear from almost the first day we pick up our instruments. Tone color? What are you talking about? You can't see sound? I don't know what color it is. You have to close your eyes, I guess. You have to turn your intellect off, I guess, because your intellect wants to explain to you that color is frequencies of light. better shut that up or you're not going to get it. Right? Okay, so that's Albert and his moment of musical inspiration that led to the first equation of today. There's going to be 4. Lenny, after thinking about it a lot and reading other resources and going back to all the people that he mentions in the book, including Chomsky and Socrates and others, reading up on them, trying to get my head around it, I too had a less profound moment of musical inspiration than Einstein. But I'm not convinced that my equation ain't going to do for the world, but his is, and maybe more. Because I came up with this. Music equals metaphor. That's the one. That's the one. That's the mantra. It's like my guiding principle. It's the only thing I teach. It's the only thing I do on a gig. That's it for me. I am done thinking about what other people have to say about it. I am done researching how technically Bernstein didn't really say that. He said that metaphor is the motor behind music, but he didn't actually draw the equivalence, Tom. Fine. It's all in how you want to define terms. It's all in how you want to define terms. That's Logic 101. Get your definitions of terms straight before you have a discussion of any kind, and you'll save yourself all kinds of grief and a whole lot of arguments. Look on Facebook how often the arguments arise because they're just defining these terms differently. All right? All the time. So let's define terms. Metaphor, story, myth, parable, tastes, colors, smells, textures in your sound. It's all of that and more. They're all around us too. The metaphors are all around us. Look at your shirt. Look at that really groovy symbol. Why did they do that? Why is it got that thing going? That image is a metaphor. That too. Everywhere you look, you'll see it. Right? We just don't even understand how deep in metaphor we are. Our very existence might be a metaphor. If all is perception, then that might very well be true. More on that later. Equals. I had a great calc teacher in high school who would make us say, is, every time we saw that sign. Is. So, is. Music is metaphor. And we all know is it the reflexive property of mathematics? If music is metaphor, metaphor is music. Very cool. Let's define music. What's music?
Everything.
Metaphor.
It's metaphor. Are you not paying attention? Is every sound music?
Potentially, yes.
Potentially, yes. What sounds might not be, and what potential do they need to fulfill to become so?
Interpretation.
Context. Very interesting. So, like, I could take car horns in traffic and make it music.
Yes. It's possible.
Haven't people done it?
Yes.
What makes it music? Context. Intention. Metaphor. They put a meaning behind it. You don't know what that meaning is very often. A lot of times, I'll tell you what, a lot of times just save yourself the trouble of even trying to figure it out. Frankly. When you listen to Sibelius, don't even try. Don't try to figure out Brahms. Don't try to figure out what he means. Don't try to get it. You won't. And by trying to get it, by trying to put words and intellectual paradigms onto those sounds, you are necessarily chipping away and condensing and losing most of his universe. So don't even try. There is no meaning. How about that? Just take it at that. It means nothing. It's still going to be the best 52 minutes of your life when you can turn the intellect off and just put yourself in it. Right? But you're not going to be able to come away from that experience and go share it with somebody else and tell them exactly how you feel and exactly what thoughts came to you and exactly what your mind was doing while that was going on. But one of these little bubbles might explode in your head. Oh my God! I left the oven on. They come from like nowhere. They're not induced by this intellectual pounding, these thoughts. They're in this world of resonance and harmonics where one will just bubble to the top. And once in a while, you'll be able to put a name on that unnameable thing and roll with it. But more often than not, you're not going to be able to do that. And one of the things that will really, I think, help you in your musical career is really being cool with not knowing. Right? And don't get suckered into these debates and these arguments where somebody thinks they do. And they're trying to influence your thoughts. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Lenny didn't know. Beethoven didn't know. Mozart didn't know. Beck doesn't know. Bob Dylan knows. And who's got that YouTube thing queued up? Are we good? Are we on? Are we going to be able to do video?
There is one key in the university apparently, and no one knows where it is.
Oh, okay. At this very juncture, I was going to show you the Bob Dylan video. That's really cool. But you'll have to check it out on your own. Do a search for Bob Dylan. It's all over now, Baby Blue. And I think it's the first one that pops up. It's black and white. It's from a concert that he did that has a really interesting history behind it. It's when Bob went electric. And you guys are way too young to remember. I'm even too young to remember, but I heard about it. He was a folk singer, and there was this folk revival going on in the 60s. And everyone considered him a prophet, man. His use of metaphor and his poetry was really, really profoundly moving. But like every other great poet, you didn't know why. And you didn't really understand the depths of this imagery in his language unless you were willing to just completely suspend all matters of disbelief and completely turn off your intellect. But then when you do that, there's definitely something in what Bob Dylan does, right, that will move you. This particular clip, it's awesome. He did a half show acoustic, and he had the band with him. They later went on to make their own group called The Band, Robbie Robertson and Richard Emanuel and those guys. That was his backup band. And he turns just before this clip, earlier in the concert, I have the whole thing on DVD. He turns to the band, and they're going to start, I think it's All Along the Watchtower, or one of those other great tunes that he wrote. And it's all electric, right? These people did not come to hear that. They came to hear Bob and his acoustic guitar and his harmonica. And as soon as they start, the crowd is very vocal. And, they're yelling out stuff like, Judas, and you're a sellout, and this is awful. Like, you can hear it. Like, they're giving him hell. And Bob turns around to the band, he goes, turn it up, man. And you can see them all go to their amps, and they just turn it up, and it's like distorted, and it's and that's Bob. You can't even understand what he's saying, and it is 1,000% that, right? 1,000% that. And the clip that you see, that it's all over Baby Blue, he comes back out to do an encore. And it's just him and his acoustic guitar and his harmonica. And somebody's still yelling. And probably the same guy, he yells, Judas! And Bob says, I can't hear you, man. And then he says, maybe you'll like this one. I'll play it for you next time. And then he plays It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. And the poetry in it and the imagery in it is superb. It could have been written by Longfellow. It's brilliant, really brilliant poetry. And I wanted you to see that, just to drive that point home. You're quite familiar with metaphors. Poetry is a great vehicle for it. If you don't read poetry, you should, as a musician. You really should. And, I learned from a poet friend of mine that if you want to do it right, you have to read it out loud. It's best actually if you read it to somebody else. And there are some places now around Atlanta that are doing that, poetry readings. It's really pretty cool. But read it out loud. Why? Did anybody read poetry in here? Or write poetry? When you read it out loud, it's a completely different experience. All of a sudden now you're hearing those consonants and vowels. And it's equating to basically like attacks of a note, and tone colors, and rhythms. And it is music. Some poets, in fact, only write according to sound. They don't have any specific meaning for this word they just wrote. They needed that sound. That's interesting stuff. But intellect off, reading aloud, hearing the sounds, feeling the rhythms, it's good. It's good for you to do that. It's good to be in that state of mind. It's good to try to stay in that state of mind. You are never more now than you are in that state of mind. Athletes call it being in the zone. It's the same thing, right? There was a fabulous book written about it, and he refers to it as flow. That's pretty cool. Musicians will a lot of times talk about that groove. It was really in the groove tonight. It's all the same thing. I mean, if you don't get lost on definition of terms. Understand metaphor and understand how all of those words can lead to the same idea. That's one of the real values of this equation. Not just in musical terms, but in all terms. You'll start to understand relationships, and you'll see a bigger picture. Cool? Questions on any of that? Before you meet T? Mr. T. So Albert Einstein was given all kinds of accolades, and one of which was the Nobel Prize. That's a biggie for science or for physics. And upon winning that award, a newspaper reporter famously asked him, "How's it feel to be the smartest guy in the world?" And you know what Albert Einstein said? "I don't know. Ask Tesla." And he's T. Nikola Tesla. Everybody say that out loud. Nikola Tesla. You all know him and adore him and probably are familiar with everything he ever did, right? Because he's the greatest human being that has ever walked the planet, right? No. I feel you. I grew up in Pittsburgh, right? Remember I told you that? I grew up like 13 miles from Westinghouse Laboratories, which was the biggest electric company in the world when electricity came out. And they made all of their billions of dollars and their huge empire on AC power, which is exactly what's driving the juice to these lights right now. It's exactly what's illuminating our lives at this very moment. Are flows of electrons running through wires that are making light. That's all Nikola Tesla. He invented AC power. He invented wireless communication. Because once he started thinking about that, he was like, you know, this is not a vacuum between us, right? If it was, we wouldn't hear anything. But no, this is a sea of stuff. Between you and me, there's got to be at least 20 atoms. I'm just guessing. But he thought, man, you know, what if there was a way to send information through the sea? He did it. He did it. And then he started thinking about kinesthetics, and he invented that whole field. Kinesthetics. Do you ever practice in your head and really feel like you're doing it? You have that power. If you were to really spend a lot of time honing that skill, it would be much, much, much to your benefit in your musical careers, in all that you choose to do, actually. So anyhow, I grew up 13 miles from where this guy was making these earth-changing revelations, and I didn't know about them at all. Never heard of them. They never talked about them in school. They never took us on a field trip, damn it. Right down the road to see the stuff he was doing. That blows my mind, honestly. And it really makes me want to like go back and just shake all my teachers' heads. Like, what are you thinking? But there's a really good reason why. And that reason is Thomas Alva Edison. Tesla worked for Edison. And Edison was a big proponent and an inventor of DC power. And the whole world was supposed to be lit up with DC power, not AC power. But Tesla realized, like, if you wanted DC power to run these lights, and your power station was a mile away, you would need about a 50-foot diameter copper cable to get that juice here. All right? Impractical. It wasn't going to work. So he thought, and he thought, and he thought, and poof, he wrote it on a napkin, actually. AC power. What if you, spun a magnet in this field that had 4 opposing polarities? And you had alternating currents. Way more efficient. Travels at the speed of light. Can travel through fiber optics, It was way more successful than DC power was ever going to be. Except ironically, this blows my mind. Now there's a car named for Tesla, and it's run by DC power. Oh, the irony. So anyhow, Edison took these patents. So did Westinghouse, and so did a lot of other people. What I saw in a documentary is that 8 billionaires were made on Tesla's patents. Tesla never did anything for money. He was a horrible business person, and he died really poor, feeding pigeons.
Yeah.
He was all in it for the altruism, honest to God. He was actually this close to discovering how to tap into the ionosphere, where he knew there's all kinds of electrical activity going on. how to tap into it and bring it down here and have free electricity for everybody, the whole planet wide, and as much as they could possibly ever use. And it never happened. That's politics, right? There's a great picture, one of the earliest photographs on record. It is Mark Twain and Nikola Tesla. They were good buds, and they're hanging out in Tesla's lab playing with his Tesla coil. And Mark Twain, he's got this big spark. It's black and white. It's real shadowy. But you see this big spark go to his hand, and his hair's even crazier than it normally was. And he's got this shit-eating grin on his face. And you just see over his shoulder, like in the shadows, Tesla's face. And it's really, really cool. Those were like two mega minds. One very pragmatic. One very much out of this world. Right? But they loved each other and they really understood each other. And one of the very last things Tesla was working on was a weapon that would split the earth in two using sound. And he was doing these experiments trying to find frequencies that would basically shatter matter. So he had this like big warehouse, and he hooked up to the beams a speaker and was just trying to find these frequencies, and he found one that made this building just go the whole thing like collapsed. And there's newspaper accounts, of all the fire departments that are responding, and people are like, this guy's out of hand, he's a madman. So he ended up like being shunned and thrown away out to Colorado Springs, Colorado, which now, I live right there, and I had no idea. There's great accounts of him up on the mountaintop of Colorado Springs where he was trying to get into the ionosphere there and creating bolts of light, big ones. People were seeing this, like, there's a madman up on that mountain. There's an evil genius. And then, like, he made a huge bolt of lightning and blew all of the power off from, like, Arizona through Idaho. All the way up the whole mountain range, the whole Rocky Mountain range. Everybody lost power. And that was pretty much it for him. And then like, people were scared. But this weapon, he was trying to find the frequency that would, if vibrating down to the core of the earth. You know how sopranos can shatter glass. Like, sound will react with matter. And everything is made out of music in the sense that everything is a small string of vibration. That's superstring theory, quantum physics. But now we know this, right? If you cut matter in half and cut it in half again and cut it in half again, you used to be able to get down to a hunk, and then they got down to something a little bit more specific. They called it a molecule. But then technology let them cut that in half, and they found atoms, right? And then technology let them cut that in half, and holy smokes, right? Blew their mind. There was a lot of energy down inside that atom that we couldn't even see a year ago. A lot of energy. A lot more than they ever expected, and a lot more than they were capable of handling. Tesla knew this. He knew of this energy. He unfortunately was not as charismatic as Lenny and wasn't able to get his message to the people, but he had a lot of forces conspiring against him, the chief among which was Edison. Edison was very, very influential, very rich, right? He did a lot of great things too. That guy was no slouch, right? But apparently he was kind of a jerk when it came to Tesla, because he completely blackballed him and got him out of history books and made it so that, growing up 13 miles from where Tesla was making these inventions, I never heard of them. That's politics, right? That's money. There ain't no ducking that. So anyhow, Tesla He wrote an autobiography, and it's free, and it's online, and it's short, and it's a great read, and he's going to say some things in there that if you think and you give them thought, might really inform your musical careers. One of the things he talks about is when he was in Edison's studio, where Edison had hired all these great minds, and they were cranking out inventions, like cranking, really big inventions too that we still use, right? Tesla would work with these teams of people, and there's accounts written about him like, what's with the weird guy in the corner staring at the ceiling? That's what he would do. Meanwhile, everybody else who's trying to come up with the next great thing is grabbing, this piece of equipment and hooking it to these diodes, and give me some of that chemical. They're trying stuff, right? Trial and error, trying stuff. Try this, and then try this, and try this. That's, in a lot of worlds, that's how they teach creativity. Get in there and try stuff, and get your hands on stuff, and get your hands dirty. And take that thing into the practice room and try everything. Hold it a different way. Try blowing in the other end one. Try everything. Right? That's what these people were doing, and occasionally, you're going to hit gold. You are going to make a great discovery. But Tesla's looking at all this, and he says, what are you people doing? You're completely wasting your time. He said, actually, this trial and error stuff that you do is a complete waste of time, energy, and money. And money. Rung a bell with everybody. Wait a minute, money. Everything that he invented famously for a period of a long time, it might have been his whole life, but I think at least I read like a period of 17 years, 27 years. Everything he invented worked the first time. Perfectly. Right? Including the turbines that are still churning at Niagara Falls. Still powering the city of Buffalo. He put those in. And when he was putting them in, everyone's like, ah, man, that's a lot of juice. And we've seen what these lightning bolts are capable of that you make. Are we going to blow the world up? And he's telling them, nope, everything's going to work. Just flip the switch. How do you know? Well, he knew because he had run every contingency in his mind. He talks about they were working on some kind of turbine there at Edison's shop. And they've been struggling with it forever. And, I think somebody finally said, hey, man, would you help us out? Would you take a look? And he came over and poof, he made it work, right? And because he realized like one of the centrifuges was a little out of balance. So he shaved a little bit off of that side and he fixed one of these bearings, and all in his head. And he kind of explained to me how practicing works. Sensual experience. The only thing we know about reality is what we receive through our 5 sensory inputs. And they are what? Touch, taste, smell, sight, and sound, right? We've already talked about how sound can equate to sight with tone color and playing red, right? These wires can be hooked up any way you want. And you can take from this one and plug it into this one. Some people are actually hardwired that way, the circuitry in their brains. And it is circuitry. It's all music going on in your head. It's all frequencies and vibrations. Some people are cross-wired from birth. It's called synesthesia. Some people literally see colors when they hear music. And it's not like, kind of like you and I experience it, unless some of you have this gift. But I mean, it's like exactly how you see. That wire goes from their ear to their visual center. If you can even try to get a feel for what that must be like. They see music. Some people taste it. Some people's auditory channels, those vibrations, all sensory input is vibration. Light vibrates at a higher frequency than sound. Smell causes vibration because the shapes of these molecules that you're sucking in rub across these membranes, and the shapes trigger by rubbing along these membranes, and they send a signal to the brain and go, oh man, who farted? And touch is the same way. When you rub your skin, there's a vibration. Like if you were blind, you would know this feeling, right? So all of these sensory inputs that are triggered by vibration, or if you want, you could just say music. So I want, so I do. You can scatter these things. You can cross-wire them. Tesla had this uncanny ability to cross-wire them all in every single configuration. Things were real in his mind from very early childhood. He had childhood friends, he talks about in this autobiography, that were not images. They were real. All is perception. All we know is what our sensory inputs tell us. And as far as he was concerned, he could see these people, he could hear them, he could touch them, he could smell them, and he could taste them. That means they're real. I think a lot of people have this experience or something similar. Unfortunately, there's a lot of cultures that say, that kid's a freak. We've got to go put him in a home. That's what happens, unfortunately, I think, to a lot of minds like this. And to some degree, I think Tesla, as a kid, was told that. Keep it down, man. His dad was a priest, I think an Orthodox priest, so, keep it cool, kid. Being a little weird. Later on, though, he came to realize, this is an amazing gift. Because I can see objects before they, quote unquote, exist as real in my brain. And I can take them off that rack and put them on this rack and shave a little bit off of here and try making it out of aluminum instead of steel. All in here, and it's all real. And when I got it all straight, then I bring it to bear. I manifest it. Very interesting. Very interesting. When I read that, I was like, wait a minute. That's how to do music. That's how to do music. Is anyone familiar with Hal Galper? Of course, Dr. Lambert is. Hal Galper is this piano player that's got a series of masterclass videos on YouTube, one of which is called The Instrument is an Illusion. It's like 9 minutes and 14 seconds long or something like that. And I make all my students commit and vow to watch it once a day. Once a day. For the next 10 years, I tell them. Because everything that he says in this 9 minutes is on the money. On the money. You got to watch it. You got to see it. I'll just paraphrase some stuff though. One thing that Hal says in that video, he asks everybody in the room, he's doing a master class just like this, and he says, how many think you got trouble playing what you hear? Right? So how many of us think we have trouble playing what we hear? Hal says, you are all wrong. You're playing exactly what you hear. That's really kind of turning it on its head. And if you think back to some music teachers that we've had through the years, just play what's in your head. You are. That's the problem. That was like a real light bulb to me. You are playing exactly what you hear every time you play. So if it sounds like crap, that's because you're hearing it that way. It's amazing, but so true. So what do? We grab our trombones, our violas, whatever, and we truck off to a little room and we trial and error and we grab stuff and let's try this and let's try this and let's do this and let's do this. And the whole time the intellect is running the show. Right? The whole time. So the whole time that's going on, let's just use math, right? What does metaphor equal? Like the moments that you're in the practice room and you're practicing thusly, how much metaphor is in your mind? Sometimes so little that it's zero, right? Zero metaphor. I'm just trying to remember if this is a C sharp in this scale. Damn it! Right? I don't care if it means love. I just want to know, is that fifth position? That kind of stuff. Anything that's going on in your mind that has a word is intellect. So any thought that's in your mind that could be verbalized or that has a word in your mind, no good. That's no good. That's zero for the metaphor, which makes music zero. Boom. There, I said it. If you have no metaphor going on in your sound, you are not making music. You're doing something. It's a physical activity, it's an intellectual activity, it could be an aesthetically pleasing activity sometimes, but don't confuse it with music, because it ain't. So check yourself. Why am I playing this phrase? Can I at least hear a beginning, a middle, and an end on every note that I play? You can just start there. Every note that you play. So in the midst of a 16th note run in a Bach fugue, you know, that fifth note that you played, were you there at the beginning and the middle and the end? And when you get down and you look at that sound you just played, could you draw it? What's the front look like? Is it round? Was it square? What's the middle doing? Is there any kind of activity? Any kind of dynamic illusion of motion? Is it intentional? Did you do that on purpose? What's the end of it look like? Does the end of this note look like it wants to reach out and grab the other note because it's in a chain of notes? Or does it look like a cliff with a big jump to the other side? You know? Were they rubbery? Or were they bricks? Or were they ball bearings? Spaced with a lot of time and space between them. What are they? Every sound that you play. Can you see it? That would at least involve, you know, the beginning, the middle, and the end. But that's only 2 dimensions. Do you see it 3-dimensionally? How deep is it? That's only 3 dimensions. How is it functioning in time? That fifth note in that run. And that's only 4 dimensions. And string theorists theorize that there's at least like 12 dimensions to quote unquote reality. But there's a metaphor for you. Like, wow, okay, okay. So once I can see it, can I smell it? Did that note smell like the note right before it? Why or why not? Does it smell like the one? Does it have a little bit of that perfume rubbed off from the note before it while it wafts its own fragrance to the next note? All right? And why? And what kinds of smells? And then you get your head around that. Like, okay, cool. What's it taste like? You know, was it Brussels sprouts? A little overdone? A little dried out? Was it eggs Benedict with extra hollandaise? Really kind of piping hot? Right? Can you touch it? What's it made out of? Was it sandpaper? Was it silk? Was it puppy skin? Yeah, sometimes puppy skin that's the one. It's the one you need. But you see what I'm saying? Tesla explained to me that there basically is listening and there is listening. Yeah. He thought that we had 6 senses. He considered thinking to be a 6th sense. And I think that's probably, as long as we're going to be categorizing stuff that should never be categorized, sure. Let's add thinking. That's a good one. Make that one of your senses. Think before you just grab stuff and try to hook it together. Right? Think before you just try to play bolero. Do you see it? I mean, I hope to God you can hear it, but I'll know whether or not you do once you play it. That's the thing. It's going to come out exactly the way you hear it. Well, Dr. Tom, you got to work your high chops for a few years before you're going to have any luck playing bolero. And legato, you've got to do probably at least half of book 1 of Rochu before you're going to be able to play that smooth. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because the truth of the matter is everything happens now, and now when it's time to play it, you're not hearing it. Boom. Bottom line. You could do 10 years of high register building and choke on the gig. So what's your first thought then? Oh my God, another 10 years? I guess I got to do more. Boy, I was doing 2 hours a day of lip slurs, and I couldn't make a damn thing smooth on that gig. I guess I better do 3 hours a day. You laugh. This is how people think, man. This is what people do to themselves. This is what people do to students sometimes. You want to play in that ensemble? They play this kind of repertoire. We really got to work your high range. We really got to work your tonguing speed. You're not going to be able to hang on this repertoire. Yeah, you will. The moment you hear it. But there is hearing and there is hearing. And you think you're hearing it really clearly. But you're not. And another thing that Hal said in this video, at the very end of the video, he says, you will hear more every day once you start. And that is gospel truth too. One of the gigs I didn't mention in my biographical garbage was really one of my favorite gigs. I got this church gig 8 years ago, and actually Chris has been there with us. And he's experienced it. These guys, they're all hip hop, commercial artists. They're all like really killing it. Our boss Dario is Mariah Carey's music director, so he's lately been flying back from Vegas after a Saturday night show every Sunday morning for church. Like they're killing it. They all work for Little John. They're all into that scene, right? It's a 100% black church, and I'm the only white guy along with Lee King, the trumpet player, which has been, an expansive, mind-altering experience just culturally and socially. But beyond that, the music that they do is really, it's like nothing I ever encountered in school. None of them read, not by choice. All of them can. All of them can. Dario will say to a couple of these guys, that's that. I'll just use examples. That's the Marvin Stam progression where they church it at the end, and these guys know exactly what they're talking about. Like, oh, that's a little chromatic walk-up from 6. They know. And then he'll turn to us, and he'll say, after that 5-7 chord, we're going to do a little chromatic walk-up off of the 6th scale degree, and we'll end it on beat 4. And that kind of stuff. Like, he can converse in all languages to anybody. And then there's another guy in the band who unfortunately passed away too soon too. My friend Calvin used to sit right next to me on the guitar, and he didn't want to hear anything Dario had to say. And the course of our church service, we have these in-ears on because we never know what tune's coming next because they're winging it, right? And we never know when they're going to modulate or anything like that. And every time that Dario would put information in my ear and say, "Hey Tom, man, tap Calvin on the shoulder and let him know what's about to happen." Every time I would turn to Calvin, he would just go, or like, he didn't even want to know that this next tune that we're going to play starts with him unaccompanied, huge, loud solo. It's flamenco style, and it's that really, really funky one that goes into like that calypso beat. He didn't even want to know that tune was next. And it's a tune we hadn't done in 2 years. And Lord, I don't remember it at all. I might have a chart though, because me and Lee chart a lot of stuff out, so we're looking for charts. And then somehow, some crazy way, Dario says go, and Calvin is on it. And shredding. Uncanny. I never have been around musicians like that. And I would talk with Calvin and I'd ask him questions like, how do you do that? Because it's all colors and shapes, Tom, and it's all about the blues. It's all colors and shapes. He could not tell you what chord he just played, and they're some of the coolest chord progressions you've ever heard in your life, and he couldn't write them down for you. Until he would stop and really think and remember back, and he'd backtrack through. If I really pressed him, like, what did you do there? Well, hang on. But he obviously didn't know in real time. His intellect is off completely, and it's all colors and shapes.